I'd like to start by thanking the Taoiseach and his team and his officials for putting together today's motion and giving us the opportunity in this chamber to have a cross-party debate. Sadly, we're in a much darker space than where we were when we last stood in this chamber condemning what is happening in Gaza. And no matter what side of the House you sit on, you are watching horror unfold before your eyes. And that's true not just of all of us in this chamber, but all of us across the nation and all of us across the globe. And many of us feel helpless, and many of us want to shout stop. And Ireland has done that. We were one of the first countries to call for a ceasefire, but the cold and the brutal reality is that others are benefiting from the horror that's happening in Gaza. The arms trade is profiteering, and in some places, politicians are garnering votes off the back of the innocent killing of civilian lives. That is absolutely sickening. We live in an era of misinformation and disinformation, and facts have never been more important. And the facts are that 25,000 people in Gaza have been killed since the Hamas attack in Israel, and that 70% of them were women and children. Today, the biggest concerns of NGOs like SADC, the Ireland-Palestine Alliance, is Gaza's newest deadly threat: starvation. The majority of people in Gaza are actually, in real life, famine right now. And that's on top of being displaced, of not having clean water, and of living at ongoing risk of disease. The people of Palestine are under constant deadly threats of attacks, of bombs, and now starvation. Hamas killed Israelis on Israeli soil, and they still hold 130 hostages. And that's absolutely wrong, and I absolutely condemn it. But I believe it is undisputable that what Israel is doing now is so far beyond disproportionate. I've spent time in Palestine, and I've seen firsthand the utter disdain with which Israeli soldiers at that point treated Palestinians in their own land. And I can't begin to imagine the pain and the suffering that they are inflicting on a civilian population right now. The Taoiseach has been on the ground in the region because of his work and the hard work of our officials in the Department of Foreign Affairs and our international collaborations. Irish hostages were released, and that's why I reluctantly accept that we still need diplomatic channels even now with Israel, because unfortunately an International Court of Justice ruling isn't going to end this war. Only negotiations and diplomacy can do that. And Ireland has shown international leadership in that regard. We already have a court case holding Israel to account, and our Attorney General will travel in a couple of weeks' time to The Hague to give evidence there. Ireland was among the first countries to call for a ceasefire, and we're using our diplomatic channels to assert Palestinians' right to assert their own state. And we're providing practical support on the ground too, in terms of aid and funding to NGOs and to institutions like the ICJ and the ICC, which need to hold Israel to account. And Tonight we are confirming Ireland's commitment to saying stop. Stop the death, stop the destruction in Gaza. And we're saying yes to safe and to unhindered humanitarian aid that is so needed in that area. But most importantly, we are saying that Ireland will support the ICJ's preliminary response, and that once the case is filed, that we can then intervene, just as we did at that point with Russia and Ukraine. The Israeli Defence Forces, their mission is defence and their goal is security. Imagine that. That's their motto, defence and security. Well, what the Israeli Defence Forces are doing right now is immeasurably beyond defence, and it is causing nothing but instability right across the region. They are renowned for precision and for their state-of-art technologies, and yet 70% of the people they are killing are women and children. A country with that big a defence budget, with that well-trained defence force, and with that capability of technology simply doesn't do that by accident. They do that on purpose. And that, in my view, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an international expert, that, in my view, has to be genocide. And that's why Ireland must support the institutions of both the ICJ and the ICC. And that's why, as soon as it is legally appropriate, we as a government and we as a nation must intervene in that case. That's how we send a clear and a strong international signal. And how we don't send a clear and a strong international signal, by the way, is fighting amongst ourselves about whether stop the war and ceasefire are the same thing. That's not helpful, that's not unity. That's simply playing to the national gallery, when right now we need to be playing to the international gallery. They have to be our audience. Stop the war, ceasefire, whatever way you put it. Palestinians in Gaza have to stop dying. That is the goal. That is the shared goal. So if that's the shared goal, let's get on the same page. And meanwhile, as we have those incredible debates, people are dying. 13 women have given birth by the time we're going to finish this debate today. 13 babies will have been born onto hell on earth, into utter destruction and utter devastation. Families are being wiped out, communities are being ravaged, schools and hospitals are being blown to bits, and it has to stop, and Ireland says stop. We have been a lonely international voice, and now South Africa is that lonely voice, and we must join them.